Hey guys, Dave with the Fishing Pastor here. You know, one of the most common baits used by bass fishermen is the soft plastic stick bait. Today I'm going to show you 5 different ways that you can rig this bait to catch more fish. So as I said, the soft plastic stick bait is one of the most widely used baits by anglers, both professional and amateur. People who fish lakes, people who fish rivers, people who fish ponds, they all use the soft plastic stick bait. Now, a lot of people refer to these as Senkos, but Senko is a specific company and manufacturer. This one is actually a Yum Dinger, which I like a little bit better than the Senko. I feel as if it actually lasts a little bit longer and I get more use out of it. So you can actually rig up the soft plastic stick bait in many different ways, but today I'm going to show you 5 different ways that are really effective in catching fish. The 5 different rigs we'll be talking about today are the Wacky Rig, the Texas Rig, the Ned Rig, the Dropshot Rig, and the Niko Rig. Now, each one of these rigs is effective in its own way, and each one has its own style and presentation that'll work in many different situations. The first rig I'm going to talk about today is by far one of the most popular ways to rig up the soft plastic stick bait, and that's the Wacky Rig. Now, the type of hook that you use for the Wacky Rig is really your preference. I know all different kinds of anglers like to use all different kinds of hooks, whether it's a straight shanked worm style hook or a drop shot style hook or even a wacky hook. And it's called the Wacky Rig because the way you rig it up is you just hook it straight through the middle, and it looks wacky, but it works really, really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out and I'm going to put it in some water and show you what it looks like when you fish it in a couple of variations. First, I'm going to do the weightless Wacky Rig, and then I will do a weighted Wacky Rig, and you'll see the difference in both of these variations. As I put it in the water, you can see a little bit of the action as it comes down, and it kind of butterflies down a little bit. You see both of the sides just kind of going up and down just a little bit, and then as I lift it, you'll see those the two sides just kind of fold, and then it'll come back down, and it kind of butterflies down a little bit. Now the fish love that, and this is a great presentation, especially for pressured waters. Where there's a lot of people fishing, they're throwing a lot of different baits. You throw something really subtle like a weightless Wacky Rig, and you're sure to find some fish that way. And for this, I'm just using a Ned Rig style jig head here, but you can definitely see the pronounced action of the bait a whole lot more when there's weight attached to it. Now, this is a lot better if you're trying to cover more water. You want to put a weight on there, and it's still pretty subtle, but definitely you can see that action of the Wacky Rig a whole lot more when you just add a little bit of weight to that rig. Now, another really popular way to rig up the soft plastic stick bait is with the Texas Rig. Now, this is a really great rig because it's weedless, and you can fish around grass, you can fish around cover, around trees, things like that, and you're not going to really get hung up. Now, it's really simple to rig up. You just put the hook through the top there and then pass it through. As you get down to the bottom, you find where that hook is going to come out and put it through the bait there, and it sits flush right with the bait. And again, it's weedless. You can go through a lot of different cover, and it's a really, really great way to fish this bait. So I'm going to go out and put it in the water and show you what it looks like both weightless and weighted. So as you can see here, when it's weightless, that it has this kind of shimmying action in the tail as it comes down. And it's a little bit unpredictable. It kind of goes off to one side and comes off to another side. Again, great presentation in pressured waters when it's weightless like that. The fish love to see that tail just kind of shimmy down in the water columns, and it'll land on the bottom. Now again, when it's weighted, you can really see that action in the tail of the bait itself, and as it comes down, kind of darts down and hits there, and then it'll actually stay up a little bit and then just kind of start to plop over. But in deeper water, generally it's going to stay up a little bit more, and if you're fishing it in grass, things like that, it'll kind of stand up above it and be noticeable, and as you crawl it along the bottom, it becomes kind of irresistible to the fish. The third way I'm going to rig up this bait is drop shot style, and this is just a really simple nose hook. Now this is really great. Again, it's very much a finesse presentation, so in pressured waters, but it's really great if the fish are looking up and feeding up there near the bottom, and you want to keep it suspended, whether it's above grass or just above the fish there. Really great way to fish it. Now if you're using a smaller hook, then you can use either a smaller stick bait, or you can just cut off part of your existing one. But if you want to use the full length ones, 4-inch, 5-inch, then you just use a larger hook on there. So let's go out, put it in the water, and see what it looks like. So as you can see here with the drop shot, the weight stays on the bottom, the bait itself stays suspended, and again, in deeper water it looks a little bit different. I apologize for the fact that it's not deeper, but you can still kind of see what happens here as you move it up and down, shimmies, stays up there, and when a fish is feeding up and looking up, it'll see that in the water, it'll imitate a bait fish or something like that, and a lot of times, again, they just find it so irresistible. Some action on there if it's a slower day, if it's colder water, whatever it is, then you minimize the action. But if they're feeding and they're hungry, there's a reaction by it, things like that, then you can put a little bit more action, and you'll see those fish grab that bait. So the next rig that I'm going to talk about is the kind of Ned rig or shaky head style rig, and this one is just using a stand-up style jig head and putting it through the bait itself. Now this one leaves you with an exposed hook, which is good for your hookup ratio. It's not so good if you're trying to fish around a lot of cover, things like that, you tend to get hung up. But what it does is it kind of gives the impression of a crawfish or something like that that's on the bottom as you fish it. But it's a really simple way to rig it up. Now if you're using a smaller style Ned rig head, then you can again use a smaller stick bait or just cut one in half, do something like that. If you're using a larger one, then definitely you can use a larger bait on there. But again, let's take it out and see what it looks like in the water. So as you can see with the other weighted rigs, it falls weight down, but because it is a stand-up style jig head, it'll kind of stand flat, and then the top of it will stand and have a little bit of an action on there, the tail of the bait itself. And again, really great for pressured ponds, things like that. But you don't want to fish it too much around cover, like I said, because of the exposed hook there. But your hookup ratios do increase greatly. But it kind of looks like a crayfish on the bottom, something moving on the bottom there, and really entices the fish. Now the last rig that I'm going to talk about is just kind of a play off of the Wacky Rig, but it is its own rig and it has its own name, and that's the Niko Rig. Now you do rig it up just like a Wacky style rig, same way, but the big difference here is that in the larger side of the bait you insert a nail weight, and this gives it a completely different action. And what it'll do is it'll stand up on its side and kind of give the impression, kind of like the Ned rig shaky head, except that it's just rigged completely different. So it's kind of this hybrid between different kinds of rigs, and when all else fails, you're giving them something that they haven't seen before. And so let's take it out and see what it looks like in the water. So as you can see, completely different from the Wacky Rig. It has a different fall, it has a different action, doesn't kind of butterfly down, but it falls down on that larger side and then kind of stands up. But as you can see, it's still rigged up like a Wacky Rig, so that hook is right in the middle, and generally this is going to be something that the bass haven't seen before. And if you tried the other ones and they're not working, try putting a nail weight in there and fishing the Niko Rig. So the gear that I choose to throw my soft plastic stick baits on is a spinning setup, and I like to use my Cast King Mela 2 spinning reel, and I have it spooled up with some 20-pound super power braided line on there, and usually I'll throw a leader on. I rarely throw it on braided line, usually something from an 8-pound to about a 12-pound leader is what I'll use, depending on the rig. Some of them you don't need as much force. If it's an open hook, you just have to kind of reel down, but if you have to set that hook, then I want some power behind it, so I'll use usually a heavier leader. And for all of them, I really like it on a medium heavy rod. I just want a little bit more backbone regardless of the rig that I'm throwing. I want a little bit more backbone, and because it's a spinning reel, you can launch it out pretty far, whether it's weighted or weightless. Alright, there you go. That is the soft plastic stick bait rigged 5 different ways. Hopefully this information helps you out and you can go and apply it for yourself and get on some more fish. If you like this video, remember to hit that like button. Also remember to hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate it. But as always, remember to pray, fish, repeat. God bless. I'll see you in my next video.